Alright, well, welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, that means you're new. I'm Mark. What's good with y'all? Go check out my other videos. Check them out. Check them out. But first, stay on this one. I'm pretty happy to do this video, as some of y'all can imagine. I know some of y'all who know me personally really know I am happy to do this video, but it's official. The Glock Model 45 MOS 500 round review, just showing you guys that it is clear. Nothing in there. And still a little bit of dirt on it. Oh well. All right, so let's get right into it. 500 round review. How did it perform? Well, guys, it's a Glock. Okay, now I will say I went out of my way, just because it's a Glock, to not clean it throughout the course of the 500 rounds. After the 500, yes, I did clean it. Apparently not too well, because, you know, but hey, it's fine. I can always go back and re-clean it. That's why they're my guns. It doesn't matter. But let's get right into it. How did it shoot? Oh man, I am very, very pleased with it. Now, a lot of people could argue that part of the reason why this might be is because I have a hollow sun on here, plus I have my light right down here, so that's added weight. However, I can tell you right now, this gun was really soft shooting. Like, I've had people who, you know, for example, for those of y'all who don't know, I work at a gun range / gun store, and some of my coworkers literally who are SIG guys, one of them in particular really a SIG guy, but that's besides the point, literally looked at me and was like, where's the recoil on this? What? And then just was like, yeah, I love shooting this thing. 500 rounds in, we have had 0 malfunctions. Well, technically not true. You guys will see what I mean in a second. There were technically some malfunctions. However, it was not due to any part on the gun's end, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys why. For example, when I was practicing some Mozambique drills with the gun, you will notice that I had a light primer strike right about here. Fourth time with that bullet. You'll also see that, you know, when I was doing some bill drills, it ran flawlessly. I mean, what do you expect? It's, you know, a Glock, right? I mean, but here those are. And then, as you guys can see, I realized, hey, I have a shot timer at my disposal to use, so obviously I had to have a little bit of fun with that. But back to the gun itself, the only malfunctions I had were light primer strikes. I had about 3 or 4 of them. I believe it was 4. I could be mistaken. And the only reason why I'm not counting that on the gun is because of the fact that it was a dead primer in that particular round. How do I know? Well, because every other round I fired, including just bad ammo that some people have already been like, hey, this is a dead primer, I fired through this gun. Now, some of you guys might also be wondering, okay, well, what kind of ammo did you run through it? Was it, you know, was it finicky with any kind of ammo? Well, it was finicky with ammo that had a dead primer to it, so that's a starter. But you're going to find that with every gun. But I ran Winchester 115 grain through it, Blazer Brass 115 grain, Scorpio 115. Let me see here. What else? I've even ran remanufactured ammo through it. Fiocchi. The remanufactured was 124, I might add. So it's not like I haven't tried different brands or different grains of ammo to run through this gun. It is just eating it all. What do you expect, guys? It's a Glock after all. Okay, so, I mean, all in all, I truly can say that I knew there was a good reason why I needed to get this particular model of Glock. Some of you guys might be wondering, what is it about the Model 45 that makes it a lot better than, say, the 19X, which is basically the same thing? Well, there's not too much of a difference, okay? All I can truly say is that I do like the, you know, the little tiniest bit of a flared mag well. You guys can see where it flares out. Just the tiniest bit allows for easier reloading. Also, I'm not really the biggest fan of that peanut butter color. I mean, sure, it's not the worst color I've seen on a Glock, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. But most importantly, this gun right out of the box can take Gen 5 mags. This is something I talked about on my first looks video about this gun, which a lot of people don't realize. The 19X and the Model 45, while essentially being the same thing, they do have subtle differences to them. For example, the fact that the 19X has this little lanyard loop on it, which essentially doesn't allow you to accept, or excuse me, doesn't allow the gun to accept Gen 5 magazines. Gen 4, 3, below, sure, fine. But Gen 5, for some reason, it just doesn't work. Now, of course, you can sand down that lanyard loop. I know a sheriff in my county in particular who literally said, I popped it off of there. So, I mean, good for him. But my whole point is that overall, this thing has been phenomenal to shoot. You get a 17 plus 1 round capacity, unless, you're like me and you're like, hey, maybe I want to, throw the stick mag in there. Now, have I checked personally for this gun to see if the stick mag worked through it? No, but part of the main reason why is because I did a lot of the shooting while I was at work, and while I'm at work, no joke, the stick magazine is one of my spare mags, and it's loaded with 33 rounds of self-defense ammo, so it's not like I'm going to unload it, reload it. That would just be a little too much effort on my part. You know what I mean? All in all, I can truly tell you that while some people might look at this and be like, oh, just another Glock, I can say right now, this is probably my favorite Glock of all time. Some people might think in their heads, okay, well, it's a Gen 5, so maybe you just like the Gen 5 platforms a little better than the 4 or 3. Truthfully speaking, there are some cosmetic features about the Gen 5 platforms that I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the fact that they took away the finger grooves on it. I'm not a fan, personally, of the fact that I can't put any other generation slide on here. Like, for example, we'll take my Gen 3 Glock 23. If I wanted to, I can put a Gen 3 Glock 19 slide on there, and boom, now it shoots 9mm instead of 40. I can't do that with this. I can't put my Gen 3 Glock 23 slide on here. I can't do any of that, despite the fact that the slide length and the barrel length are the same size, because of the fact they are different generations. I know that was a mouthful. That was a lot to say, but now that I've gotten all the, the little aspects about it out of the way, all the, the little shooting bits, let's talk about this gun in all 4 self-defense situations and whether or not it's worth it for you. So, 9mm, not the best round out there, but one of the most common, if not the most common handgun round you're going to run into. So that's always a plus. Ammo is going to be readily available for you. It's a Glock, so it takes, in this case, a double stack 9mm Glock. Hold on. Sorry, I had to take that out of my pocket. A double stack 9mm Glock. So in this case, you got a lot of magazine options, whether it's from Glock themselves or just aftermarket mags. You have a lot of options. So we got to take all of this into account on top of how well it shoots. So of course, it has a basic Glock trigger. Always make sure it's empty. Now, some people might be wondering, what is so bad or good about a basic Glock trigger? In this case, nothing. This technically might not be your basic Glock trigger, as it's a fixed 5.5-pound trigger. However, on average, your Glock trigger is going to be anywhere from 5.5 to 6.5 pounds. I did not add this trigger in here. If you guys watched my first thoughts video, it came like this right out of the box. All right, so for home defense, we're going to start with home defense. I would argue that this is one of the most phenomenal handguns you could have for home defense. Why is that? Well, because of the fact that, one, it's Glock, it's going to be reliable. Some people can argue, oh, well, any gun can malfunction. Yeah, that's true, but when we're talking about what firearm company has such a great streak or a great record of reliability, we're going to be talking about Glock here. So you're not worried about reliability, generally speaking. You get a great capacity out of it, and if you want to, there, of course, are other magazine options. As I mentioned prior to that, it's a very easy gun to shoot, a very easy gun to control, and with all of that taken into account, you have to give it a pretty good rating here. I mean, let's ignore the fact that this is an MOS for 1 second, okay? This gun itself comes with an accessory rail, so you can go ahead and throw your light on there. I'm not going to show that on camera because I'm not sure how YouTube is acting right now about showing people adding attachments onto their firearms. But you can go ahead and put your light on there so that way you can see at nighttime. That's not an issue for you. It's MOS, which I'm now going to bring back up. So you can put a dot on there if you want to, like I have. And I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I wasn't the biggest fan of dots prior, but I've really grown fond of this dot in particular. Although it has it's had its own issues. I'm going to talk about that on the review of the dot itself, though, which will be the next video I make. But back to the gun itself, the Glock Model 45 MOS. Home defense, I mean, all in all, there's really not much more that you could want to speak about. 17 rounds to 9 mil, you should be good. I mean, even if you don't want to stick with just 17 and you go higher, I mean, you got more options. You got the 19 round mags, you got the 24 round mags, you got the 31, 33. And if you're going aftermarket, you know, you have the 50 round drums. I mean, like, you got options here, guys. All right. So home defense, I'm honestly going to give this one a solid 9.5 out of 10. Great gun. Would I recommend using it? 100%. And chances are this is probably going to be my new home defense handgun because of the fact it's what the Pasco County Sheriff's, which is the county I live in, currently carries. So it's not exactly that big of a deal, in my opinion, for for me to have this gun, because if it's ever used in a situation, of course, they're going to have to take it for evidence for a little bit, but they're not going to sit there and be wanting to keep it too much as if it was like a $2,500 staccato or something. Now, moving on from that, we're going to go ahead and move into concealed carry. Concealed carry is going to get a tiny bit lower of a score. Some people are going to ask why that is. That's just because of the size itself. The reliability of this gun doesn't change because of the fact that you're concealed carrying it. None of that changes. However, you have to take into account now that you're out and about just in the public world, where you don't want people to know you have a gun on you. That's the whole purpose of concealed carrying, so that way people don't know you have the element of surprise on your side. So while this having a full-size handle is definitely not the best for concealed carry, the slide length itself is not a problem. The barrel length is not a problem. That is literally, it's the same size as a Glock 19 slide. So that's not an issue that you really have to worry about. If you are going to conceal carry this, I do recommend you get a holster claw, so that way it will push on your belt line and push the grip of the gun or the handle of the gun more into your body. That way it'll just be a little bit easier to conceal carry. It's definitely not a gun the size of the Taurus G2C or anything along those lines. So I'm not going to sit here and act like it's perfect for concealed carry. But when it comes to reliability, shootability, the capacity, all of that, you're still pretty much top notch with this gun right here. So while I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, well, this is a perfect concealed carry gun, it's really not that bad of an option either. I'm going to give this one a fair 8 out of 10. I think 8 out of 10 is fair. I was going to go 7.5, but you also have to accept the fact that, hey, this is MOS, so you do have more options with it. That is always a benefit. The fact that you can choose whether or not you want to have a dot on there, that is the benefit itself. You don't have to go and spend an extra ton of money, not a ton, but, you know, maybe a couple $100 just to have your slide milled so that way you can have a dot on there. There's no need for all that when the gun already comes MOS. So I think a fair number is 8 out of 10 here for concealed carry. Now, the next one is where it's going to get a little bit hairy. The Glock 45 is definitely going to get a score lower than an 8 on this one. How much lower? We'll figure it out. In an SHTF situation, how good or how important can this gun be? And that is a great question. So when you're looking at a SHTF situation, you have to look at a few different things. You have to look at the availability of ammunition, the availability of the magazines, the availability of parts, the availability of accessories, even if you really need them, like holsters, for example. All right, so with that being said, you got a lot to look into. Okay, so ammo, you got that. No problem. Magazines, you got that. No problem. Those are pretty much everywhere. The availability of those is unmatched by any standard. There's no arguing that. The availability of parts is now where we start to draw into a more tricky area, a more grayish area, right? This is a Gen 5 model, meaning that a lot of the Gen 3, Gen 4, actually pretty much a majority of them, a lot of those parts just are not going to work. There are some that will. I'm not going to say that none of them will, because that would just be untrue. There are some parts that I'm sure will work that are interchangeable. However, in the end, it's not going to be as quick as, oh yeah, let me just, I see a crack going down my slide for whatever reason. That guy's got a good slide. Let me just field strip real quick, throw it on, boom, I'm out. You know what I mean? It's nothing as simple as that. And that's kind of an issue in my opinion. This is where I would argue that maybe a Gen 3 model would be much better, as they have been much more mass produced. Therefore, the part availability for them is pretty much just out of this world, unmatched. But for everything else, when we're talking about just parts themselves, ammunition, magazines, if we're going to go to accessories, it gets a little tricky because it depends on whether or not you have a dot. For example, the holster that I carry my dagger in is, it actually can fit this gun if I didn't have a dot on it and I didn't want to carry my light on it. But I do want to, so I'm not going to use that holster for this gun. In the end, it really just depends on if you have a dot on there or not, or if you want a holster, obviously, particularly with your light on there. But also in an SHTF situation, I really don't think that you can be super picky about what holsters you can or can't get. You see what I mean? I think you can be more picky about the ammo or the magazines than you really could be about a holster or really an accessory that you might need for the firearm. So all in all, we got, I know it's a lot that I had to get out there, but all in all, I think we can truly say for an SHTF situation, we're going to give the Glock Model 45 MOS a 7 out of 10. The reliability is not an issue. The ammunition is not an issue. The magazine availability, not an issue. None of that is an issue. It's simply due to the fact that it's just not going to be as compatible with other parts that are more mass produced and other accessories such as holsters that are more mass produced, due to the fact that you might have a dot on there, making it impossible for you to carry it in the same holster without doing some sort of modification. All right, now that was a mouthful, but I got it all out. All right, moving on to number 4, the final one out of the 4 self-defense situations here, animal defense. Is this gun going to protect you from an animal? What kind of animal? How well will it do it? Let's talk about it. So, the 9mm round, a pretty okay round, you know what I mean? It's not, there's nothing super, super special out of it. It's not like, crazy or anything, but, it'll definitely stop pretty much all small animals that might try to attack you. Majority of medium-sized animals, depending on which load you have too, because, for example, because I have several different kinds of hollow point ammunition in here. I'll tell you this right now, if I hit, really, you can think of several different animals with this plus P 9mm JHP right here, I pretty much can guarantee you that it's going to stop it. Now, of course, there are some exceptions, like large animals like bears, moose, for example. I know I said, for example, like 5 times now in the last 2 minutes. But the entire point I'm getting at is that for a majority of medium-sized animals that you might come across, which is definitely going to be a more common thing to come across than large or extra large sized animals, then this round, this gun, you should be just fine. The only reason why I'm saying that is due to the fact that there have been a good amount of advancements in ammunition technology and the reliability of these firearms. I mean, for example, with the Glock Model 45 MOS, I mean, Glocks are not only rated for your standard 9mm ammo, they're rated for plus P+, if I'm not mistaken. So you got a lot of options here in that case. So animal defense, I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 either, because you have to be realistic here. In order for something to have 10 out of 10, that means it can stop pretty much anything it wants to, which in this case, a 9mm Glock just isn't going to do. It can stop a lot of small animals. It can stop, or pretty much all small animals. It can stop a lot of medium-sized animals, but definitely not really any, if any, large animals. So with that being said, I think I have to give this one a 6 out of 10. So if we're going to do that math here, that was a 8 plus 9.5, 17.5 plus 24.5. Yeah, so realistically, we're looking at about a 75-ish, something like that, percent for this gun right here. Some people might be wondering, why did the score average out so low? Well, that's the average. We're talking about an average here. So, we're looking at a little over a 75%, which in my opinion is actually pretty damn good, especially for what this gun is. I hate to say it to you guys, some people might not want to agree with me, but it is a double stack 9mm Glock. There are a ton of them out there. So for this to receive that high of a score in this case, I think is pretty good in my opinion. Would I recommend you buy this gun? Absolutely. I love it. I truly love this gun, and it only helps that it is MOS. You get the option of adding a dot on there if you want to. You don't have to. And if you already have one on there and you want it off, you can take it off. Of course, when you put it back on, you're going to have to re-zero it, but you should know that already. But with that being said, I think that about wraps it up for this video. And by all means, somebody please correct me if my math is wrong on that average, because I'm not going to spend the time doing the calculations like I've done in other videos. But with that being said, y'all make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell. When you hit that bell, hit all in. Whether or not you agree with me about the Glock Model 45, whether or not you agree with me about the score of it, whether or not you agree with me about anything I've said in this video, go ahead and comment down below why or why not. Make sure to check out all my other videos. Y'all make sure to stay legal, stay safe, stay dangerous. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.